Hi, this is MJ, and in today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to make this waffle stitch cardigan. The yarn that I'm using is palette fingering weight yarn in cotton candy, and it is a fingering weight yarn. You can purchase this yarn from We Crochet, and I'll have the link in the description box. The hook that I'll be using is my Furls Odyssey, and the size is an F, which is a 3.75 millimeter, and the link will be in the description box for the hook as well. Okay, so I really think you're gonna like the construction of this cardigan because it is worked in one piece, and that eliminates a lot of seaming. So I'm working it from the bottom up. So what we'll do is we'll work the back, we'll then make our sleeves and our front panels. Really simple. We can add some pockets after to make it extra cozy. So what I'm gonna do is start out with the back band. So just put a slip knot on your hook, and we're going to chain out 11. Okay, and then when you have your 11 chains, we're going to work back in each chain a single crochet. So in the second chain from the hook, just going to work a single crochet in every chain across, so you'll have a total of 10 single crochet stitches. So when you've worked to the end of the chain, we're going to chain one and turn, and then we're going to work single crochets in the back loop only. So here, as you can see, the little V's, you're going to go down and work through the back loop only, a single crochet. Whoops. And work a single crochet in the back loop only of each stitch across. Okay, so when you get to the end of this row, you'll turn and chain one. And you're just going to keep repeating now row 2. So working in the back loop only for the entire band. Now you can follow along with the written pattern for the size that you're working on. I'll be showing you how to work up the medium size in this tutorial. Now I'll just make a smaller swatch off camera, but when you make your medium size, I'm going to show you here on my larger piece, you'll have a long band like this. So I have a total of 114 rows. So that's how many you need to make for your medium size. Now I'm going to make a smaller swatch so I can show you how to begin working our waffle stitch pattern. The waffle stitch is a multiple of 3, so you need to make sure that you have a multiple of 3 if you're changing any of the sizing. But if you go to the PDF, I will have all the sizes written out for you. Okay, so for my small demonstration, I decided to go with 18 rows. But of course, you're going to have as many as you need to make for your pattern. So I have 114 for the medium size. So what you're going to do now is we're working along that long edge of the ribbing to start our waffle stitch pattern. So you're going to want to crochet 1 single crochet per row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and if you look at your rows, you'll have these little ridges, so you'll be putting 2 stitches for every little ridge, and you should have 18 stitches. So just work that across going to complete that off camera and then I'll meet you up. When you get to the end, we'll chain 2 and turn. So for the next row, we're on the wrong side of our work now, and we're just going to work across double crochets. So you're working double crochets in every stitch across. So you should have the number of stitches that you have here, that you had here in rows for the size you're working on. Okay, so I've worked across 18, I'll chain 2 and turn. And now we're going to start onto the right side of our waffle stitch pattern. There is a right and a wrong side to this stitch. So the waffle side gives this nice little box, almost looks like a waffle. And then the wrong side looks like this. Okay, it's a lot flatter. So in the very first stitch, we're going to work just a double crochet into that stitch. Our chain 2 will not count as a stitch. And then in the very next stitch right here, we're going to work a front post double crochet. So yarn over. You're going to push your hook under that stitch, yarn over, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And then we'll work a double crochet in the next 2. Okay, and then we'll work a front post double crochet into the next. Double crochet into the next 2. And then a front post double crochet into the next. Okay, so I want you to go across, continuing in that pattern, so 2 double crochets and then a front post. So now I'm coming across to the end and I have 1 final stitch and I'm working a double crochet. Okay, so it should look, we start with a double crochet and then we have our post and then we're ending with a double crochet and the post is here. So it's going to look nice and even. So now we're going to turn, chain 2 and turn, and we're back to the wrong side of our work. So the second row of the pattern, it's a lot more simple than you might think. You're just going to work first a double crochet in that first stitch. Again, we're not counting our chain as a stitch. And then in the next stitch, which was the front post from the previous row, we're just working a double crochet. Now in the double crochets from the last row, we're going to work 2 front post double crochets. So we'll do a front post and a front post. Then the next stitch is our double and we'll work, or the front post from the previous row, and we'll work a double into it. So when you're looking at the work, it sort of looks like this stitch is pushing more to the front, so we're doing a double in that, and the ones that are popping up more to the back, we're working front posts in them. So we're doing a double, and then a front post in the next 2. Okay, so now just repeat that across. And now as we get to the end, I've worked my 2 front posts, and now we're ending with 2 doubles. We started with 2 doubles, we're ending with 2 doubles. So we're always beginning and ending the same way. We'll chain 2 and turn. And now you can see this is all popping up here, and that's going to help get this waffle stitch. As you get doing a couple more rows, it'll really start to show the pattern. So let me work through that first row again with you. So we're working a double in the first. And we're working a front post double in the next. And then as you can see, those 2 stitches that are pushed back, we're working a double in each of them. This pattern actually works up rather quickly because it's worked in double crochet stitches. So even though I'm using a fingering weight yarn for this pattern and a small hook, you can see that it does work up pretty quick. So we're just alternating a front post and then doing 2 doubles. And once these stitches are already established, it's really easy. It's a really therapeutic stitch. I really hope you enjoy making this sweater because it really is a nice stitch to work through. Working it all in one piece just eliminates a lot of hassle. Okay, so I'm just continuing going across with that. You can see that stitch coming together, and this is how it's going to look. So all you're doing is repeating that first row that I showed you and the second row. So just exclude that double one that I started with, and you're repeating the ones where we start making the post stitches, okay? So that'll all be written down in the pattern for you, but you're just going to repeat. This cardigan is going to be fairly long. Now, if you want to alter the size, that's completely fine. You can change up that length. I wanted my size to be about 24.5 inches in length. So I've worked a total, including that first row of double crochet, I've worked a total of 73 rows, and I'm ending on the wrong side. Okay, so I'm ending on that second row of the repeat that looks like this. Okay, because I want to be back to my right side when I start working out those sleeves. Now this section here is going to take you a little bit to do, just work away at it, and once you've completed it, then you're going to meet me back up to work out these sleeves. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a new ball of yarn. I have my right side facing. I'm going to come over to my left hand side. I'm going to join. I'm just going to join this on just so it's all set up and ready to go. Okay, so just joining into the corner. Tighten that up, and now what I'm going to do is chain out 78 stitches. Okay, 78 is a multiple of 3. So I know my stitch pattern is going to continue across correctly because I'm adding a multiple of 3 to it. Now this sleeve is going to be about 15 inches and my ribbing is about 1.75 to 2 inches. So my total sleeve length is going to be about 17 inches. Now you want to keep in mind that if you measured from your underarm across to the cuff length, it may be a little bit longer than 17 inches, but this is an oversized fit. So you have to remember that this is going to hang down your arm more than your underarm. So I suggest maybe taking your arm length. So my arm length is about 19 inches. And then I subtract 2 from that because of the oversized of the sweater. So I'm wanting my sleeve length about 17. I find 16.5 to 17 inches is good when I have an oversized fit sweater. So if you want to alter that for your arm length, just sort of measure from underarm to desired cuff, and you can get a measurement to see if you need to alter, keeping in mind that it's going to change. You need to work in multiples of 3. And if you change the stitch count, you do need to make sure you continue through the pattern and changing those stitch counts, okay? Because you don't want to get confused. And if it's too long, there is always the option of rolling your cuff. And I do that quite often with my sweaters. So I'm going to chain out 78. And I'm going to just make sure I keep those stitches fairly loose. Actually going to do it slip knot on my hook and then join in. I think that might be a bit better. Okay, so let's chain out 78, keeping that nice and loose. Okay, so I've worked up 78. I'm just going to cut that off. Okay, and we're just going to leave that. Stick the ball aside, and we're going to come back over here to our working yarn. Okay, so we want to do the same thing. We want to chain out 78, but because we have to work back into that chain, I'm going to get you to work an extra 2 chains so that we have a turning chain. Okay, so the sleeves are the same. We want them 78 stitches, but I need to chain an extra 2 on this side. I know this sometimes confuses people as to why I'm chaining different on each side, but we need to work back into the chain. So we need to chain a couple extra. Sometimes you can even chain 3 for a double crochet, but I'm just going to chain an extra 2. So instead of 78, I'm going to chain out 80, and again, making sure that those chains are nice and loose. Okay, so I have chained out my 80 chains. Okay, so now what we're going to do is work back in the 3rd chain. I just pulled that one chain just got pulled tight. So there, that's 1, 2, 3. So in the 3rd chain from the hook, we're going to work a double crochet. 3. Okay, and we should be working across the chain now, a double crochet in every chain for a total of 78 double crochets. 78 double crochets. Then we're going to be working across the body, which is 114 stitches, and then we'll do another 78 double crochets for the other sleeve. So I'm just going to continue working across my chain. And just double check your count as you go. Make sure you have 78, and then I'll meet you up at the body. Okay, so I've worked all the way across, so I'm now to the body section. So we'll continue across here with our pattern. So we're going to work 1 double crochet in the first, and then it's a front post in the next. And then 2 double crochet, and a front post. Okay, so you're going to work across like this, and then when you get to this chain over here, you're just working double crochets across the chain. Okay, so you're just going to continue across with your pattern. You'll end with a double crochet, your front post, and a double crochet in the last stitch, and then work 78 double crochets across the chain. Once you've completed that, I'm going to meet you back up, and we're going to work that wrong side row together. Okay, so I worked all the way across, and I've chained 2. Now we're on the wrong side of the pattern, so you have to remember now the wrong side repeat. So we start out with a double crochet in the first two. Okay, and then we'll do a front post in the next two. And then a double in the next, front post in the next two. So we're just going to repeat that across. Okay, so I'm getting to the end here. So I'm ending with a front post. And it should just be going right into the front post of the body section. So the pattern should just continue seamlessly as you work along, okay? So it should just flow. You should just be able to pick up at the body section here and continue with that wrong side repeat pattern. Okay, so I've done that. And you can see that it's not, the sleeve's not pulling too tight or anything. So I definitely did a good job making sure my chain wasn't too tight. So just make sure that you're happy with how that sleeve section looks. So I'll just work now across and just continue working that pattern across my other sleeve as well. So now what you're gonna do is just continue working in rows. So you're working the back and the sleeves at the same time now. So you have to work that until we have about half the sleeve width completed. So for the medium size, I want my sleeve about 16 inches in total. So half of that is about 8 inches. So that is what I'm gonna go ahead and do, because this now is quite long working through both sides. So we have 78 plus 114, which is a total of 270 stitches. So that's what we're going to be working across. Now remember, this is where if you've altered the sleeve length, things would change because your stitch count could be different. So that's why if you've added, let's say you added 4 stitches and 4 stitches over here for this sleeve, make sure to change those numbers on the pattern, print out the pattern, change the numbers so that you don't get confused as we work. But if you've done the sleeves the same, that's perfect. The only thing that might be different if you're working on a different size is the body width. So follow along with your pattern. I'm going to work up my half sleeve off camera, and then I will meet you up for the next section. Okay, so I've worked this up till I have about 7 inches. Because our blocking is going to stretch this out slightly, that's as far as I'm going to go for this half of the sleeve. Now the next step, once we have that work completed, is to mark off our neck. So you want to end on your wrong side of your work. So this is the right side with our nice waffle stitch. So you're ending on the wrong side. And then go ahead and count. You're going to count 26 stitches from that side, and 126 stitches and 126 stitches from the other side. And then you're going to mark off your neck. This neck opening is not going to be very big, okay? It's just a small neck opening. And just mark it either with stitch markers. I just used some yarn at the time because I didn't have any stitch markers on hand. So you can just use a piece of yarn, and I marked off my stitches. So I only have, I believe, 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 for the neck opening. Now, I was working away at this in the evening, and I kept going and worked the next half of my sleeve. So what I did is I continued working until I had the rest of my sleeve complete. So I counted how many rows I did to get about my 7 inches, and that was 26 rows. So when I did the next portion of my sleeve. So I ended on my wrong side, so I ended up coming back on my right side to work up this section of rows. So again, I was just working in rows, nothing different except I worked over 126 to my mark stitch, chain 1, chain 2 and turned, and then just kept working so that I had 126 stitches. So now in total my rows are 52, which is double 26. So that's what I've done for that side of the sleeve. So then the next step is to come over to the right side of our work, joining in to our mark stitch here, and I need to work back and forth now another 26 rows at 126 stitches. So that gets us our sleeve portion completed. So you can see how this is gonna look. I'm gonna try to move my camera up a little bit more here. So you're gonna have this sleeve all as one piece over here. We're gonna have this small opening. We're gonna work the next portion of our sleeve over here. Then what we're gonna do, once we get that section done, then we have to mark off the body of the sweater because we're not gonna have any more sleeve continuing. You can see how our body is here. It's really easy to follow along with our stitches. So because we have this waffle stitch, you can tell right here that we're gonna be marking off our body section. Some other yarn in the way there. So we'll be marking off our body, and then we're just going to have this small little panel that we're going to continue working. This is all going to be edged with a nice ribbing, so don't worry. This is all going to come in and be wider than just that skinny little panel. And also remember, we will be blocking it, so it's going to give us a little bit more stretch. It's going to be kind of look a little wonky before you block it. It's just the nature of this stitch, but when we block it, we're going to square it off and make it look really good. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to join in and continue working it's going to be our front left side. We're going to be working that part of the sleeve now. Okay, so the second right half of our sleeve is complete. And once you complete that, then we'll join in and complete the left half. Okay, so I'm joining into that stitch beside the post with a new ball of yarn. And I'm going to chain 2 and I'll work a double crochet right into that first stitch. I'll work a front post. Doubles in the next 2. Front post, and I'm just going to be continuing with my pattern. This is so repetitive. It really is a great project just for sitting, watching TV. It's really therapeutic. Once you learn the waffle stitch, you can just go at it, and I do find it works up quite quickly because it's in double crochets. So even though we're working with this fingering weight yarn, the smaller hook, it does work up quickly, and it's a really easy stitch to make. That's what I love about it as well. It's nice and easy. And you'll find that the longest, I think, section was working up where we're working 2 sleeves in the back all at once, but this half of the sleeve is going to work up rather quickly. So you're looking at doing a total now of 26 more rows to get us we'll have a total of our sleeves is going to be about 15 inches, but don't worry, we're going to block that out. So your sleeve will actually be a looser fit than that. So I'm going to continue working across my row, back and forth now, just in rows, like I've shown you how to do the stitch. And I'm going to complete another 26 off camera. So to mark the front body, it's easy to kind of take a look at our back. We know we want it to line up. So just follow along with that post stitch. This is the easiest way to do that. So there's your post stitch. There is the first stitch beside it for that little edge of the row. And let's just put that stitch marker in and mark it. So this is marked off now, the front body. Now, this, of course, we're going to have half of this will be part of the front body as well. We're going to have this opening really for our neck, but then we're going to end up with a really nice ribbing that's going to make your front panel so it's not so narrow. So now, and depending on what size you make, you're going to have it bigger. Plus, when it's blocked, it will stretch out. So I know this looks fairly narrow, but it will stretch out once blocked, and then we'll have the ribbing as well. So you'll want to bring in your yarn. So now I just want to mention again, we're always ending. So our sleeve, we fastened it off on the wrong side because when we start coming back here, we want to be on our right side. Okay, so we're on our right side, which makes it really easy to see our stitches and how we need to work them. So we're going to just go into the same stitch as the stitch marker. Okay, and we'll be chaining 2 and working a double crochet into that stitch. We'll then work a front post. Doubles, front post, and we're just continuing in the same stitch pattern. We've worked through it together already. So really this video is just to really guide you through each step so it doesn't feel as tough or confusing. So I work most of it off camera, but I'm just kind of breaking for those critical steps to make sure you get them. Follow along with your pattern. And these steps will just help you so you don't get off track. Okay, so I have a total of 48 stitches now for the medium-sized front panel, but again, follow along with the size you're working on. Chain two and turn. And then we're just working back and forth in our pattern. Okay, 2 doubles, and then we have 2 of our front post. Now, we want the front panel to equal the back. Okay, so you want to work the same amount of rows now that we had for the back. So as many rows as you did if you've altered your length at all. So you just want to work from as many rows as we did here to going up to our sleeve. We want to do that for the front panel as well. Okay, so I've been working away on the front panels of the cardigan. So you can see here, this is my front right panel that I've worked. Just showing you here the sleeve. This is my left sleeve. This is my my right sleeve, my front right panel. So I had a total of 48 stitches for the panel. I worked it a total of 73 rows so that I was equal to the back. And then I added a join as you go band to the front. So if we take a look here at the left side, I did the same thing. So I had my front panel here is a total of 48 stitches, and I've worked down a total of 73 rows to match up with the back panel as well. So I'm going to show you now how to do this simple join as you go band to finish off the front panel. Okay, so I'm going to join my hook onto that working loop. You should be ending on the right side of your work. We're going to chain one and turn so that we're on the wrong side now. Work a single crochet into every stitch across. Okay, and both front panels are worked the exact same way. Now you can follow along with your pattern. The size you're working on, you're just going to want a single crochet in every stitch across. Okay, so I've worked all the way across, a total of 48 stitches. Now what we're going to do is chain out 11. And then we're going to work back single crochets in the second chain from the hook and in every chain across. Just count as you go. You should have 10 stitches. There's 3, 4. Okay, so what we're going to do now is skip over the first stitch. We're going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. You're going to turn your work, put your yarn to the back, and we're going to slip our single crochet now in the back loops only of each stitch. 1, 2, 3, and I do like to count to make sure that I have 10. Okay, now once you've worked across 10, I want you to chain 1 and turn, and we're working back down again, working in the back loops only. Single crochet stitches, and you should have a total of 10. If possible, I suggest you always count because it's so easy to lose a stitch on these join as you go bands. Okay, and then when we get back down, we are going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. And turn again. Okay, so we're just going to work the whole band in this manner now. So we're just going back and forth. We're working these rows, but we're joining them with those slip stitches as we go. Okay, so I'm just going to complete now working that across off camera. Okay, so this is what I'm looking at right here is my sleeve. So I had a total for my sleeve of 52 rows in total. So what we want to do now is, this is the waffle stitch side, so this is the right side of the pattern. I'm going to take my yarn and we're going to join here to the corner. Okay, and I'm going to work a single crochet. So chain one, work a single crochet. Now I want you to work a single crochet in each row, and this is going to start gathering the sleeves. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I just want you to work single crochet stitches all the way across so that you have a total of 52. Okay, and once you've worked across your 52 stitches, we're going to work this just like we did the front panel. We're going to do a join as you go band. So this is worked identically. So you're going to chain out 11. We're going to work in the second chain from the hook, single crochets. Make sure again that you have 10 stitches. Okay, we turn and we're skipping over always that first stitch and slip stitching into the next two. And then working in the back loop only. Work single crochets across. So you're going to work up, chain one, come back down, and then slip stitch into the next two. And you're just going to do that all the way across, and do this for the other sleeve as well. So get both of the sleeve cuffs completed, your front panels completed, and then I'm going to meet you up again, and we are going to do the final step of working the band all along the inside edge of the front panels and up around the neck. So that's the last step, and then blocking, and then we'll be done. So I'm going to work off my bands now off camera, and I'll meet you up again for the next step. Okay, so I have completed the ribbing around the sweater, and I'm just going to show you how I did it. So I joined on down to this corner, and what you want to do is work single crochet stitches across your ribbing, and then for every space you see, so for every row, you're going to add 2 single crochet stitches. So that's what I did for the entire front panels, going around the neck and then down the other side. So at this point, the ribbing will look like it is a little bit wobbly, but we still have to block and stretch this out. So it should all look good when it's all finished and blocked. So once you get down to this side, so you're adding those 2 single crochet for every row. If you're finding that it really is too bunchy, you could do every other. So 1 and then 2, 1 and then 2, and that would still work out fine if you did it that way. So we'll get to the bottom, we'll end on this side, and we're going to want to do that join as you go ribbing. So you'll do the ribbing just like I showed you for the panels and the sleeves. You're just going to work single crochets in the back loop only, joining as you go. So that join as you go ribbing. So that takes a little bit of time. So I just worked away on that and finished mine up. So this is what it's looking like now. So I've kind of laid the sweater together, but what I'm going to do next is I'm going to wet it all. So you can add a little bit of either a tiny bit of dish soap to your water, just lukewarm water, or you can get the wool wash that I'll put the link in the description box from We Crochet. And so you just want to soak your piece, and then we're going to lay it out on big foam mats, get our pins, and we're going to block it to measurements. Now this is quite a big piece, so you're going to need quite a few mats for it. I am going to pop up a little schematic for you as to what the measurements that you're going to need to block. So you're going to want to screenshot that, pause it, make sure you have those measurements or have your pattern ready, because you'll want to block out exactly to the measurements that I'm giving you. So once you wet this, it's going to really relax the yarn and it is going to stretch out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now and block it, and I'll pop up that schematic for you. So I've blocked my cardigan here to measurements. I'm just giving you a little preview of how it looks. I have the really large foam mats that I purchased, especially for a design this big, we need a lot of mats to lay it out. So I've pinned those all out. I've allowed the cardigan to fully dry, and now I'm just going to remove all of my pins and show you how to start seaming it together. Okay, so when I took my cardigan off the blocking mats, I just folded it right in half with my right sides facing. So the waffle stitch is going to be facing in. As you can see, I've lined up the side of the cardigan as well as the sleeve. Now I left some long tails to help with the sewing. So how about we start here? I've left a long tail at the sleeve, and you can start seaming at the cuff here. So you're just going to go through each stitch along your cuff. The blocking is really going to help it all to line up. All your measurements should be correct, so everything should, it's nice and flat, almost gives it a pressed look. Now, once we get to the sleeve portion, we're going to want to make sure that our underarm, you could always use a stitch marker, a locking stitch marker, just to hold that. You want to make sure that you are sewing up the sleeve nice and even. And you're just going through just the edge. So we're just grabbing a little bit from each side. Just a simple whip stitch is fine. So now I probably have enough yarn here to get up to the underarm. And then what I'll do is I will start down here as well and work to the underarm, and then just weave in any of those tails. So you're going to want to do this to each side of your cardigan. And this is the main part of our seaming that's required. Then we just need to sew on our pockets as well. And so I'll work up the seaming for each of the side and sleeves off camera, and then I'll meet you up for the pockets. Okay, so next I want to show you how to make the pockets for the cardigan. So I've already made one, and I will grab my hook and show you how to go ahead and make that. It's really quick and easy. So let's begin with a slip knot on the hook. And again, our pattern is worked in that multiple of 3. So for this size pocket, I'm going to do 27 stitches, but I'll chain out 2 extra So I'll do a total of 29 stitches or chains. 1, 2, now we'll want to work a double crochet in the third chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3. And work double crochets all the way across. Now, if you want to make your pocket a little more narrow or wider, you're just going to increase in multiples of 3. Now, once we've reached the end, we're going to chain 2 and turn and start into our stitch pattern. So we'll work a double crochet in the first stitch and then a front post double crochet around the next post. Okay, a double crochet in the next 2. And then a front post double crochet around the next. Double crochet in the next 2. And we're just repeating, we're just repeating this pattern all the way across, ending with 1 double crochet. So I'll complete that off camera and then I'll meet you up again. Okay, so we should be finishing off with a double crochet in the last stitch, chain 2 and turn, and now what we'll do is a double crochet in the first 2 stitches, and then a front post double crochet in the next 2. So just the same stitch pattern we've been doing the whole way through this pattern. A double crochet in the next, and then a front post double in the next 2. Okay, so now I'll just repeat this pattern all the way across. Okay, so I've ended that with my 2 doubles, chain 2 and turn, and now we're just repeating the second and third row so that we have a total of 15 rows. So here is what it's going to look like. So do a total of 15 rows, and then I'll meet you up to show you how to do the band. Okay, so I finished 15 rows, so I'm ending on my wrong side. I'll chain 1 and turn, and now we'll work single crochet stitches all the way across. So work a row of just single crochet stitches in every stitch across. Okay, so once you've worked across, we'll now start our join as you go band. So we're going to chain out 6. Then working in the second chain from the hook, we'll work single crochets down the chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now we're skipping over the first stitch and we'll slip stitch into the next 2. So this will be worked just like I've shown you all of our other join as you go bands. We'll turn and then we'll work in the back loop only. And so this band is 5 stitches. And we'll continue to slip stitch it down to the base as we work along. Now the stitches are so tiny it can be tricky to get into them. Chain 1 and turn. Continue to work in the back loop only. So there's 5, and slip stitch into the next 2. So just complete that all the way across. Okay, so I've slip stitched across my last 2, and I'm just gonna work back up. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm actually gonna end up with only 26 rows of the ribbing. I'm not gonna work back down. I just want to fasten off up at the top, and I'm going to make sure it's a really long tail for sewing the pocket. So we'll start sewing it all the way around. Now, to save on a little bit of time, all I'm going to do is steam block my pockets. So I'm going to go ahead and steam block them out to measurements before I sew them to the cardigan. Okay, so I have all of my seaming done. This is what it's looking like. I woven all of my ends, and I'm so happy with how the sweater has turned out. So it's really easy to sew on your pockets because of the grid. I absolutely love this. So you can easily square it up and just sew it to the post stitches so that it's on nice and even. So you can kind of, I have mine a little bit off-centered, so I have 2 sections on this side and 3 on this side, but it's up to you. You can just maneuver, and depending on what size you make, it's going to be different depending on the size as well. So let's just count up how many from the bottom I've done. So 1, I'm just going to kind of go with in between this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 3. So if we go over to this side, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have our tail. Now this one needs to get, I forgot to weave this one in, so I'm gonna do that and then I'll start sewing that. Okay, so like I say, it's so easy. You're just gonna go through the post and over to the pocket. Okay, and then I just go through the post and the pocket as we go. Okay, so it's going to make it so easy to sew these on. We're just going to follow our square. So then when we come down here, I'm going to make sure again we get the corner, come across, and corner it all up, just going on, sewing it right to the post, and then our pockets are going to be on there perfectly. Of course, you could omit the pockets if you want, but I think it adds a really nice cozy touch. And get to the corner. Okay, so I've finished this pocket as well. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tap the bell to stay updated on all my new videos and tutorials. Thanks so much, guys. Have an awesome day.